Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Angular Air. I'm your host, Justin, and on today's episode, we have a little bit of a surprise. We're going to be talking about a new show and a potential new library, and I don't have any other details to share with you until we get into the content, so it's going to be a surprise. So let's say hi to our panelists, and then we'll say hi to our guest who's coming back again. So this is awesome, and then we'll dive into the content. Alyssa, how's it going?
So good. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. Excited to have you. I think Mike is going to be joining us.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna
we'll,
do his. You can
all right.
ask me. Yeah.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
I'm great, thanks. Was that like
Yeah.
perfect? Was that like
That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
I thought it was him
Awesome.
at some point.
Yeah. Like I could almost see your face in the picture of an emoji or something. That's just pretty cool. All right. Our guest joining us once again, I think our third episode that we've had you on. Younes, how's it going?
Hey, I'm fine. So happy to be here again. See you guys.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
cool.
Yeah, we're happy to have you back once again. We had the two other shows. We had a testing show, right? Where we really dove into
Yeah.
test commit and roll back or something like that, right?
Oh, yeah. It was like, the TCR.
Yeah.
TCR and TTDD.
That was
and the
super fun.
Sandbox TTD. Yeah, it was fun. And
we,
the
we
old
really
one,
should hand out awards. Like for like people who've been on the show this like recurring times, like 2 times, 3 times, 4 if we can find, the fourth. But
Ooh.
I agree. Let's do it.
I mean,
All right. So we had test, and then the other one
What
was I'm trying to remember what it was. Do you remember what it was?
well, I think it was about authentication
Yes,
and
that's right.
security. I guess
Security. Yep. Yeah.
this was a few years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah, that one was longer ago. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Got them on our channel though, so go watch those. Not right now though, because we're in the middle of the episode. Watch them later, but definitely check them out.
everyone leaves.
Awesome. You're like, I gotta watch that now. I mean, it is very good content, so it's worth it. But this one's gonna be great too. How you doing? What have you been up to lately?
I'm really fine. Trying to figure out, like, I guess just the same for you, like the not only the work-life balance, but like the work and community time balance.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I wish I could spend like more time for the community, and that's quite it right now.
Yeah.
Where are you working at right now?
Actually, it's my own company, so it's Marmicode, and the things that I do, like both coaching, like I coach teams for like extreme programming and Angular development and stuff like that, and the other side is like workshops and content. So, and I call it coaching, but actually it's consulting. But what I mean by it's a mix. But what I mean by it is that like I like the idea is that I try not to code much, and I never code alone. So the idea is it's always like mode programming or pair programming, like sharing knowledge with people and discussing things and discussing ideas.
It's never you going in and fixing their problem in solo. Like
never. And I just try to give them like multiple possible passes. And
does that not stress you out? Because literally what you're saying you do on the day-to-day is just like, hey, whatever random problem you have, I'm sure I have a solution for you, is what that sounds like.
No, it's more like whatever problem you have, let's discuss it, and you will probably find the solution.
You know what you know what you sound like? A code therapist,
Yeah,
like
totally. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I like that a lot. I mean, it's just, we're going at this together, and we're going to do it together the whole time, so that it's not you magically fix something or you magically make something happen, because you still would have to find a way to tell them how you did it, right? And to share that knowledge. So by doing it at the moment, then you're taking care of all of that, all wrapped into one.
Totally. And in addition to this, like for the same problem, I don't always use like the same solution, and it depends on the team. Like, for example, let's talk about state management. We're not only discussed like how complex is the app and does it need like state management or anything,
Yeah.
It will depend on the team's skills and if they're new to Angular or not. And then depending on that, I might suggest a path or another and recommend one or another. And then they adopt it when they're ready. And we prepare like switching. Like sometimes we like use some patterns to abstract things because we know that in few months, in few weeks, when they'll be like more technically mature, they can switch. So I love this like the human side of it, like how how does a team behave in front of code, you know, like how to
Yeah,
interact
that's
with code.
awesome.
That's the way I see it.
It's cool.
Where
Yeah,
where does Marmicode come from though? Is that name a name in the industry and I don't know it? Or
No, actually it's kind of a French kind of pun, but it's actually a cooking pot is called marmite, you know, like you put food in it. And the idea is so it's Marmicode, so it's like the cooking pot code.
or code.
Yeah, for coding. And the idea is the whole theme is about like cooking and like sharing recipes and you know like how like the same recipe, like the same plate, same dish, like everyone cooks it differently,
a little bit differently, yeah.
a little bit differently.
And somehow when my mother-in-law gives me a recipe, it comes out differently, even though I swear I followed it. So she does this when she writes out the recipe. I think so. No, but like you're right. It's different people executing the same thing. Sometimes you get different results.
Yeah, exactly. And the more you try, the more you get better. And sometimes while sharing the recipe, you don't think about all the ingredients. That's exactly the same when you write like content or when you write like when you give a course, like, oh, I forgot to tell this little tip. And but when you pair program, when you cook together, that's when like you learn and from the others.
I love that.
Such a great metaphor. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it just keeps going and going, right? I mean, you think about a recipe and somebody else adds their ingredient to it, so it's a different version, but you get, it's great. Yeah,
I'm making a note of this because I was on a committee for women in .NET, and I've started to enter that industry. And something one of the women suggested was that we relate like day-to-day items with coding, and that would maybe perhaps make just the idea of being a programmer more approachable because you're already thinking like a programmer in your day-to-day, or you're already doing things that a programmer does or problem solving, just not with code. And so I love that with cooking. It's really, you're right, Justin. It keeps going, the metaphor.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Mike.
I made it.
You made it
back.
Yeah. Sorry, I had a call that I had to take, so I'm joining in and trying to get up to speed, which takes me forever. I'm slow.
Well, so here's the gist. He has a company called, am I going to butcher it? Marmicode? Did I just butcher it? Is it fine?
No, that's perfect.
And it comes from this like French pun combination of like a cooking pot and code, and it's like Marmicode, and it was like, oh my gosh. And then we were just kind of going off on a tangent about how relatable cooking is to the programming world. And I think you're up to speed. So that's where we are.
Food, code, merged. Cool.
Got it. There you go. I think, like a good kind of way to quantify like what we're talking about here. And you talk about the, thought process of when we're choosing decisions on code and, what is the team skill and all these things coming together. I kind of look at that as like when we get to thinking about enterprise level development, right? So when we start our journey, I know I did when I started my journey, it was very like scoped down to I'm building some stuff, I'm making some stuff, I'm seeing it, it's all about my world right at that moment. Then eventually you get to a point where I'm building software for a business, and then you're building software with a team for the business, and all those things start to come together. And, Alyssa, like you talk about with these metaphors and these things to kind of correlate to real life, it's because we also want to bring in these real life kind of outside of code approaches, right? You talk about the team and the skill set and how do you get people together. Like it's like for me, enterprise level development is bringing all of those things to the table and understanding it's not just code, it's business needs, all these things that then help drive your final decision on what are we doing for this app, this architecture, and that sort of thing.
That's exactly it. That's the exactly the way I try to see it. Like when I think one of the problems, like in the software industry, is that we try to absorb like processes from other industries, like technological industries or industrial companies and stuff like that. But actually, I like to compare what we're doing to what's happening, like in craftsmanship or in a kitchen, like professional kitchen. Like there's not like a special cook who is an architect who's in an office, like in another building, writing the recipes and the orders. Like today you're gonna cook this, blah, blah. He's there, and they're talking like, oh wait, I'm gonna show you. But if he's crazy and he's just like shouting out people, like people just leave, so it doesn't work. So it's like the empathy, and then you're like, it's not very perfect yet, but it's okay. People can eat this, and then we can improve. I don't know, like it's
I honestly, I found that very much with Twitch over the last year, because, and I really encourage, if you feel like you're working in a silo, even if you're, remote and you're unable to have that, I feel like even if you just like jump on Twitch and work on something that doesn't really matter, but you're like just having that process of like instant feedback and instant, like you're working with a community to build something, and it is very living, and it feels very different than like a silo.
If you
and
have followers, I just end up talking to myself.
I love you, Mike.
Yeah, sometimes you just talk to yourself, and I mean, if I'm doing it on Twitch, at least I'm like thinking I'm talking to somebody else. But if nobody's watching, then I'm just talking to myself.
Well, it's like the rubber duck, that we used to have on our desk. The duck's not actually listening, so it's the same concept.
Wait, your duck didn't listen?
I mean, no, it glazed over a while
My duck wrote
ago.
half my code.
Hey.
Yeah, you can use the squirrel.
Wrestling said, "Hey guys, good to see you, Wrestling." Sure. We are talking with Younes today about we actually have a couple of different topics. Right now, we're just getting introduced, but it's good to see you.
Hey.
Talking to the chat. Sorry, not you guys. I'm not talking to you guys. I'm talking to the chat.
All right, I want to extend the cooking and the kitchen metaphor just a little bit further, because I think it's really exciting. It's a great, it's still a great bridge for some.
Lay it on us. I want to hear it.
So the other great thing about that, when you think about that, is that every kitchen is different, right? Every requirement of those kitchens are different.
Oh my God, the environment.
And this is something that I think about a lot lately, and I'm trying to kind of help people think in this manner. Like, one of the things for me, when we talk about things like best practices, like, to me, best practices is somebody defining that, like, I know what's right. And for me, I think it's like ideal practices or practices that work. Right, is more of the, can we start conveying it in that sense? Like, hey, this worked well for us. It's a good recommendation that you explore it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to work for your kitchen, right? And what you're shipping and what you're making and what your needs are. So can we start thinking more along the lines of, when we share this knowledge and we talk to other people and teach developers, can we talk about, hey, these are the things that we've had success with. Now take them and maybe they'll apply and have success in your kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're totally right. And while we're talking about like best practices and recommendations, and I totally agree with you, like we should call them recommendations more than best practices, because it's like less, strict. And but the main thing, I guess, like for me, like a good recommendation or a good best practice or whatever, is the one which is like explained and justified. Like the don't do this or do this doesn't work, because, and especially it's valid in like a small period of time, like especially in technology and software. Like I keep telling people, okay, today you should maybe try this because I think it's good right now, but listen, in 2 weeks, I will probably tell you the opposite, because things evolve. So,
And the anti-pattern is just the other end of the same thing, right? And I just think about these things because, Alyssa, when you talk about like getting other people into programming and bringing people in, right?
Yeah.
It's this, how can we alleviate the thought that, like, because I hear it all the time, oh, I'm not as good as this person, or there's no way I'm going to be that good. Like, we're all the same, right? We all,
honestly,
it's just a matter of the time and stuff you put into it. So can we get away from
by learning like that voice in your head that you're just talking about, Justin? like how wrong it is, because there's so many times where it's like, I don't know as much as these guys in the room, and I can't keep up. And then like, I go and I live code with them, and I'm the one that ends up solving the problem, or I'm the one that gets it deployed. And it's just this eye-opening, like we're all on this like problem solving journey together, and we all have different tools at our disposal. But like, I don't know, I really, really hope that we can like make that more available for beginning programmers, because it is this fallacy that's like in your head, this voice, and it's just so
and
wrong.
I feel like those things contribute, right? When you tell somebody that's an anti-pattern, don't do it. Like they may have they may have shaped their code to solve a business need that they needed that fit for that, right? So how's it benefiting if I go and tell you that's an anti-pattern? It's making you feel less that you made the right decision, right? I don't even know your decision, but it probably fit for what you needed. And that's the beauty of writing code, right? Is like there's syntax and there's compile rules, which even those you can, find ways to craft on your own. But from there, we have this Play-Doh, this pottery that we can craft however we want to craft, these recipes, this food that we can make however we want to make, and we're all free. And that's the excitement I think we have of it is we can build whatever we want with this stuff, right?
You guys do think that people have that mentality when they see best practices? Because like in my mind, the recommended, like it's already there. Because like it's like obviously they don't know the situation you're in. They don't know all the variables. They don't know what you've got. So like in my mind, I'm like, yeah, like but you're saying it's not obvious to most people that like when they see a best practice or an anti-pattern that it's like,
I think just the terminology of the way you present it. Like to me, when I hear best practices, it's very, this is what I think a best practice is. I don't know your situation, but I'm going to tell you what I think. So I think it's just the way that we communicate about it and talk about it is important, because people take that to heart, and you feel that if I, it's the smart and dumb components, right? If we call them dumb components, then the people that are tasked with just doing presentational components, what are they going to go? Hey, what'd you work on today? I worked on dumb components. My company's got me working on dumb components. I mean, it's just one word thing, but it's something we can think about in terms of inclusion and helping people feel important.
Totally.
Let's remember the human side of things.
Right.
And having some empathy and compassion as you talk to people that not everybody's had the same experiences to be able to pull in and utilize. So as a senior developer is less about age and more so about the breadth of your experiences to be able to pull from those and to be able to convey those. But keeping in mind other people's feelings and opinions is good. And you do that as long as possible. Sometimes you hit a snapping point of, no, you don't want to use var. Stop using var. Please stop using var. No, stop using var. It just started like another argument there.
I was in like C# and I tried to use let the other day, and the chat goes wild. They were all like, stop it.
Was this in your channel of series of JS Girl on the .NET World?
Yeah, they don't like it when I pull in TypeScripty things into C#.
See, they need to have that human side of things to convey that. See, when I make typos, nobody's there to see them. Just the duck on my desk.
The duck on my desk. I love it. I really, really wanted to ask about Younes' new YouTube show. And I know you were worried that it wasn't going to take up a huge portion of the show, but I am curious what you cover and how, because I really thought Marmicode was for the show, and I didn't realize it was also the name of the company. So now I'm like, okay, how much of the story am I missing? I need the whole story.
Okay. So Marmicode is like the company for like workshops and content, like video courses that I'm building. They're not public yet. And the other part is, I was like, okay, now that I'm making videos and I like doing that, because like problem with courses and workshops is that sometimes like you don't want to repeat yourself on some parts, and I'd like to interact with like AMAs and Q&As and stuff like that. And I think that the package is more interesting. And on the other side, while like thinking about like all the videos and stuff like that, I thought one thing that I find missing is, when there are like so many great tools and open source libraries. So I'm not going to focus only on open source libraries, but right now will be the main topic. But it could be like other tools, and the idea is, the problem is that as an open source developer, like, you're focused on your life and your work, and when you have sometimes you work on your library and stuff like that, and like, you don't have that much time or energy or to like make content and like talk about your library a lot. And so that's how it started, and I thought maybe I could like make videos where I present some tool, like I discover it in the video, like, oh, this is how it works, and I'm going to try this. I don't know why this doesn't work, and blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
And then the second episode for each tool is that I invite like the core team of the tool or library, the creators, so we can interview them, ask them how they do this. Do they like when do they contribute to their library? Do they work like by night or on weekends, or how do they personally live this, and why do they do it, and the story behind it, and maybe some feedback on like the previous video, like maybe, oh, let's live code something. We saw that you did this in your video, but now you can do this and it's way better, and we can like pair program or something on that. So that's the idea. So the idea is to promote some libraries, some open source tools, and get the feedback from the community also, so the people can ask questions and get closer to the contributors. Because like most libraries we use, like the main discussions we have with core contributors is through issues, like on GitHub. So it's not like the best way to discover human beings. You know?
That's such a good point. Yeah.
So
That's
I
awesome.
thought that could be like a way to link users with creators.
Oh, I just realized I tried linking your show in the chat, and I think it's blocks links, right? Like, I don't know why.
Yeah.
I
Send it
always
to me and
forget
I
that.
can-
I'm gonna
I can
send it
post
to you. Okay.
And then change your finger pointer to down. No, you can't change it. I guess. Yeah.
No,
Just send it to me. I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you.
I think it's Googleable, probably.
Yeah, no, for sure. But also I'm pointing to nothing there, in case you were wondering.
No, you're pointing to the emoji that I used previously in chat.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, I'm a goof.
All right, so it's on YouTube, right?
Mhm.
Cool.
Are you streaming that live, or are you recording those sessions and then putting them up there?
Yeah, I'm recording and editing the videos to try and make them compact as possible, and it's really hard. And that's also, I think that's a huge discussion I'd like to have with you, is
Oh, yeah.
the length issue.
Yeah.
Long video is long. You don't have time to watch it. But the problem is
Long video is long.
the short
threshold?
video.
What's
Sorry?
the threshold for long?
Yeah, what do you think is long?
Oh, for this show, I was aiming for like 5 to 10 minutes, and it's actually 27 or something like that. And for me,
5
like,
minutes? Do you know how fast 5 minutes is?
yeah, of course.
That's
It's
like
hardcore.
nothing.
It's
Yeah, but
hardcore.
it depends
Then-
on what you're doing for 5 minutes.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I've had instructional videos where I've had to stretch things out to get them to a minute. When I recorded some courses and video, well, not courses, but some videos for Egghead, those
Yeah.
were concise videos, and like
They
to get
are.
something
They are.
over
So,
a minute.
I mean, yeah, Egghead is very like, they'll take, like, I look at your first episode and it had, I mean, what all did you cover in that episode? It was like 3 different technologies. What was it? It was like, I'm pulling it back up. And so like, if you were to do that like Egghead style, let's see, because you covered the component React store or Angular state, but I
Yeah.
feel like that could be, and it was what? How long was it? Do you remember? Was it a short one? Did you keep it like super concise?
Which one?
Oh, I was just
like
looking at your I think it was Marmicode tasting session number
Oh,
1.
the first Marmicode. Yeah. It's the one. It's the 27 minutes one.
Okay.
And but inside there's a link for another video which is unlisted, it's like the too long didn't watch version.
Yeah.
And you get like all the tiny little parts.
So I
But
really struggle with this because I feel like if you make it to like the 5-minute mark or even the 1-minute mark that Mike was talking about, you're leaving out so much story, and there's you don't know what angle someone's coming in to learn at. And so I feel like if you offer, here's my 30-minute video, like people are pros at skimming nowadays, right? Or like jumping to the part they need. So like, especially if you have bookmarks of like, I taught this, I taught that, I taught that. And having that whole story is so valuable. I don't know. What do you guys, Justin and Mike, what are your thoughts on like should they be bite-sized like whenever you're trying to teach, or do you think, because for me 30 minutes is not long. Like I think, but I stream for 4 hours at a time. So like that's the break where I'm like 30 minutes. That's nothing.
It depends on the goal of what you're trying to accomplish. If you want the surrounding story, the thought process, and how you go about things, then you know what? The longer length makes sense. But there's also people who are there just for the content. Justin and I spent 4 hours, I think it was twice, on marble diagrams streaming on Twitch. So that's 8 hours of content. But you know what? You can find marble diagrams videos about setting that up in 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes, and explaining what they are and how you set them up and use them. But if you want the exploratory of what we went through and the conversations that we had around that and the discussion about it to get a deeper understanding of what we were doing and struggling with, then you'd go with a longer content. So it depends on the goal of what you're trying to put out there.
Yeah, totally.
And we took about 4 or 5 hours to establish a new term called bag of marbles, right?
It was a bag of marbles, yeah.
Yeah, the bag of marbles. So the syntax, we coined the syntax of bag of marbles. And so, 4 hours to kind of come up with a new term. That's, I think that's fair. I think for me, like, I think when I break it down, I start thinking about, well, what is the goal of, like, what are we trying to solve, right? And for me, it's, we're trying to think about how can a user, a viewer, get to what they need to get to, right? For me. So it's like, if we talk about a 5-minute video, it's maybe they can, find what 5-minute video they care about to jump to, right? Or if we talk about the longer video, and Alyssa, you mentioned bookmarks in it, like that could provide a way for the viewer to get to what they want. So for me, it's how does the viewer aggregate through that content to jump to what's relevant to them if they're not feeling like the whole thing? And as long as there's a solution like that, then I think we're providing, that opportunity to solve that need. So whether it's breaking up in videos or bookmarks, I think ultimately it's the thought process of, well, if I'm a viewer, I may not care about A, B, and C, but D is what I want to get to, right? And at this moment, right, maybe I'm in the middle of writing some code and I'm looking for an answer, and your video has that answer. Can I get to it fast and identify it? If it's so, then I think the engagement with the viewer is successful at that point, whether it's longer or shorter.
Younes, what's your flow like right now? Do you aim for, I'm gonna make 5 minutes, and then it's like 30 minutes and you're like, I can't make it any shorter, ship it? Like what's your
Yeah. Well, actually my aim my first aim was like around 15 minutes because I wanted to share the story and some tips. But because for like the show, I think there are 2 goals, and maybe like I should make for every tool like 2 distinct videos, but it depends on the tool. So there's like the first goal is, hey guys, there's this new tool. I think it's interesting. This is what it's trying to solve, and check it out. But the problem with this video is that it's the good thing is that like you allow people to discover new tools, because like, I don't know if it happens to you, but sometimes like you discover like a new library or something, or a new framework or whatever, and you end up on the docs and you're like, what should I do with this? And you're like, feel I'm missing something. You don't have the story sometimes. So I thought you need a little story to understand what it solves. But the problem is that you don't get like the whole details, and you don't grasp like the real idea about library and all what you can do with it, and the difference between what happens without it and what happens when you use it, and that's the difference. But so that
No.
makes it longer. But then to answer your question, finally, I thought I was aiming 15 minutes, and I kept cutting, throwing away, and at like 30 minutes, I was like, ship it, and ship it, and then I tried like a real shorter version, and like the 7-minute one, and it's kind of I don't really like it, because I mean, like, just you lose the story. So I was like, okay, that's how it is. It's aiming like a different population, because the problem with the longer version is that, like, if I don't know, like someone tells you about like library or whatever, and you're just curious, you just have like 5 minutes, you just want to see it. So you open the video, the first thing you look at is how long it is, and then maybe you just give up, or maybe you check out the bookmarks and you're like, maybe I can go check this. But it's an effort to go check the bookmarks, so I think, and also like another challenge to answer your question is that I find it quite hard to estimate the cut out version of whatever thing you're recording. The only marker I have is that I know that right now I'm around like 1 hour of work for 1 minute.
Yeah.
So I know
my
that.
Gosh, you've got that ratio?
Yeah, totally inefficient. But actually, for video editing and everything, like,
no, I was just saying it's amazing that you know that ratio. For me, it's like a big fat question mark of it gets done when it gets done. Like, I'm amazed that you know.
I measure everything, like, to analyze it for, like, I know, like, even like how much time it takes me for scripting and video editing and preparing the thing, preparing the source code and stuff like that. And it's I think it's important, and I use it right now to know how long the final video will be. Like, I know that if I work for 10 hours, I'll have content for around 10 minutes, and that's how that's how I know it. But
I see it's such a different beast, like live coding versus making prepared content. Like the steps you're talking about of like prep work. Whereas I'm like, does the project run? Yes, we can go live, right? And even if no, we'll debug it live, like I'm just amazed at the steps. It sounds intense as far as just like, you said, what is it, an hour for a minute? Like, was the prep?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Like, I love that you know that, and I'm a little envious. My brain doesn't work that way, because even if I was doing what you're doing, it would be a rough guess of like, well, I'm pretty sure I'll have this done today. Like, I love that you measure everything. It's very cool.
It's hard to measure though, because there are some parts that you don't measure, like, all these moments where you're thinking about it and people are talking to you and you're like, what sorry, what? And that's
you're right.
You don't measure, but sometimes you're like very focused on that thing, and it takes lots of time, and maybe at some point, like, take a break and you're Googling something about that library. So do you count that time or not? I don't know. It's hard. It's like a rough estimate. So
I get you. It's the same with client work. I was telling my husband, because he does client work on the side, and I was like, I don't think you realize the mental tax of the client work, because like, you're only doing 5 hours a week, but I was like, I think you're thinking about it right now. You know what I mean? Like, you're sitting here churning about it. So you're right. How do you calculate that? I think for both like teaching technology and teaching software, but also like even in our day-to-days, I think sometimes we don't realize. I don't know if both of you have that figured out, especially because I know you've both done client work before. Do you calculate in like a percentage for the extra, like, just mental weight of having this, like, or no, it's just straight numbers of, was I on my computer for this time for that project, like working on Angular, like, or like, or do you count the Google, like when you go and Google, like, I'm just curious if you guys have.
That's a good question.
Are you
So,
afraid to answer? Is there no answer?
No. For me, it's like I start off going, okay, I'm going to try and reserve all my mental energy for the time that I'm on the clock, right? And when I'm done with that, I'm going to mentally try and walk away and separate.
Okay.
But for me, it's tough because I get passionate about everything I
Yeah.
dive into. So the next thing you know, a couple months in, I'm thinking about it, you know, when I'm off to go get dinner, or I'm thinking about it in the morning before I even start work. And then it's like, oh, how do I deal with myself? Because I'm really solving problems, but I haven't clocked in yet, right? So I think it's challenge. Like for me, it's a challenging mental management at that point. I end up like saying, okay, well, you're passionate about it, so fine. I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. I
We
try
need
really
a
hard.
passionate tax.
Right. Yeah.
I think that tax is actually that's the experience the value you're providing to your client, which counts, not the time. And when you end up with a client and you keep Googling or trying to fix that thing on the weekend and everything, actually you're mainly doing it for learning because you want to solve that thing and want to learn, and that's something you will probably keep for a long time. And that's fair. That's the interesting thing. Like, you shouldn't sell time, but like value. But the other thing is also, I think it depends. One of my challenges is like fragmentation, because like I have some clients. At some point I was even selling like 2 hours of consulting or coaching. Like, we have a session, like consultation session, and let's talk about your problems. And
I mean, was that long enough to even do anything in? Like
Yes.
if it was just like, I've never seen you before, I've never looked at your code before, 2 hours, I'm going to evaluate you, your team, and your code and help you come up with a solution. Like, that seems like a stretch.
No, it's usually teams that I know from before.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like we started something, and then we keep in touch like this. So there's a prep work. They're like, hey, we have 2 hours, we have this problem, and let's try and fix it and see what happens.
I see. Okay.
And it was, but the problem is that I had prep work too, because I asked them to send some email before so we can prepare things.
Yeah.
And also a lot of work afterwards. And now I have like clients with whom I work like sometimes like just half day here, half day there. And the thing is, clearly when it's, the more fragmented it is, the more expensive it is, because I know like that if I work like full time with a client, I know that by the end of the day, it's okay. I'll see them the day after, and I'm going to help them, and we can work together. But if I work like half day with a client, and by the end of that half day, there's still something I want to share with them, and I want to show them something, and I want to summarize what we've seen, because like it's very dense, it's very compact. We talk a lot. And so afterwards I spend a lot of time like writing emails. I don't know how you do, guys, but it's like something that
what? I mean, you write like really complex code. Writing an email stresses you? Explain this to me right now.
Emails are way harder.
What? Absolutely ridiculous.
Well, it's that human factor, right? It's that like when you're writing code, you're talking to a machine. A machine doesn't care how you treat it, right? So when you write to a human, you have to think about this interaction.
Code, you have tests, you have the compiler. But for a human, like I'm explaining the concept or whatever, or giving some advice, and I'm like, am I giving too much information? So I'm going to throw away this, and maybe this is too this. Oh, maybe they can understand this like this, and blah, blah, blah.
That's what spouses are for, okay? Because I write an email just how it needs to be written, right? Like as if I was talking to a computer. And then I send it over to my husband, and he goes, you can't say it like that. And I'm like, why? And he's like, it sounds mean. I'm like, it's truthy. And he goes, they're not a computer. Like, you gotta have somebody in your life to bounce these things on.
Well, it's like you're writing your email, and you're trying to find out if it runs in production, right? So like at runtime, will the email fall apart or work, and that's
Yeah.
what you're kind of trying to solve. Yeah,
The
Trigger.
human factor. You're right.
Right.
Yeah, I should
I
probably
think-
think about that more.
I think the thing that you hit on right there was another thing I was going to mention is that there's this need for resolution, right? That's the thing. So like that's when I start thinking about, am I thinking about this stuff after hours and whatnot? I start justifying to myself going, I need resolution, right? Like it's still in my head because I feel like it wasn't solved yet, right?
Yeah.
And so for me to have peace and calmness outside,
Yeah.
my mind, I won't have that unless I resolve these things. And so it's like, okay, I guess I just need to take that on whenever it comes in my head because I have this need to resolve it. Once that's resolved, I figure it out or whatever.
Well, does
then
the
I feel like
resolution
it's
have to
finally
be
at peace.
two-way where it's like Younes was saying, you kind of sum up what happened for them because it was a lot to grok. Does it have to be like that, or is it just saying you're saying on your side you have to make sure it's resolved? Or
I think it's like on my side, but like Eunice said, it depends on the situation, right? Like if you're not going to see them and it was a one-time thing, then you
Yeah.
also have to solve it two-way because you got to get that to them, right? If you know that you're going to see it later,
Right.
then it's you resolve it on your side to where you go, okay, I'm ready for the next session. I start working. I know what I'm going to do there, right? It's not lingering.
So I'm curious with Marmicode, did you stop offering 2-hour sessions, or do you just have higher rates for that kind of thing?
No, I just stopped.
Yeah.
Stopped. It's
Yeah.
not. It's too much stress for everyone. Half days are cool, like and but yeah, 2 hours is just was too.
That seems really hard to do. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was an experience. It was an interesting experience.
Oh, so I know we've got like 15 minutes left. This has flown by and I've loved the conversation. I agree with you, GC the coder. They were saying good stuff. I think we need to rename the episode to like really encapsulate this conversation.
Everything.
I know. We're gonna have to. I'm gonna brainstorm and figure it out. But I'm thinking right now, code therapy. Might just be the title right, to get people in. But there was 2 other things we wanted to touch on before we run out of time today. Someone remind me. Number 2 was I think a library and then a Twitter. So what do you want to talk about next?
Ooh, as you wish.
Did you just quote The Princess Bride at me?
No. What's that?
We heard it.
Yeah, you did, whether you knew it or not. It's a movie called The Princess Bride that I will gladly share with you. The first time I watched it with my dad, I was like 10, and I kept making him pause it, and I was like, "Is this movie for real?" And he was like, "Watch it," and I was like, "No, but seriously, who does this in a movie? Like, it's the most off the wall, like campy people that I've ever seen. Like when I was like a kid." So, but there's this guy. He goes, "As you wish," and so I don't know. Maybe you say that a lot in your life, and people must assume you love the movie. I think.
Should be careful with that. I should watch all the movies so people don't assume it.
So let's talk about the tweet that you put out the other day about the Suspensify. Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
All right.
And plus we can merge it with the open source thing because it's quite related. So yeah, the Suspensify thing is it's a little operator we wrote with Edward Boson, who's a friend with whom I worked on JS Cutlery, which is our open source organization. And the cool thing is that, well, now he moved from Lyon, but we were in the same city, so we can still see each other. So we have like this open source days, and we meet at our place and we work together on that. And we try to regroup stuff in the JS Cutlery open source repos. And while working with RX state or whatever source observable whatever source of observables you're using, a common problem is, you get that you call your HTTP, you call your repository service or whatever, your HTTP client, and you get the data, and the main thing is like, okay, I'm going to use pipe async, or I'm going to subscribe and grab the data, and then let's keep the errors and for later, and is loading status and all that things for later. And so it's a common problem of having to handle like the error and the complete states, and also the pending states, like that period when you subscribe and you're waiting for the first emitted value. So you want all these information, and it's clearly something that you can see with and every time like you talk about this problem, people think about materialize. And the problem with the materialize operator is that like it emits a value when you have like a new value, when you have like a complete, or when you have an error, but you don't have like all of them. So you have to combine this with scan or whatever, to regroup all the information. The other solution, which is less reactive, is like you end up with taps, and you tap at different places to detect when like you have like the first value and stuff like that, or you add the start with, so to have a new value, then you add the finalize to grab when it's completely done, and etc. So the idea is that we made just a small operator that you can use in whatever library, whatever, with or without any library. And so whatever source you have, you just add the suspensify operator, and it kind of emits a kind of state, So when you use it, the first thing it will emit is that, okay, I'm fetching data, so it's pending. And then the second thing is the values, so it's going to emit the values. And when it's complete, it's going to tell you it's complete. And so at each moment when you subscribe to that source, the first thing is that you don't have to catch any errors or whatever, because it's done there, and you have like a whole state with wherever you get there. And then you can bind these states to like Rx states if you have like a local state, or you can use it directly in your template or whatever. So I think it's something that can help when you feel like some RxJS spaghetti there with lots of operators to handle errors and everything.
So it's really that stream is having these values come through over time, right? And so you're saying like we put this in there, so now the stream is constantly going. The first thing that's going to come through is this object that's defined there, and we see on the screen, right? And so then next time another version of that, another instance of that object looks like that object, right? Comes with that data, and so we can evaluate that data, each value coming through the stream, to know what we need to do at the UI level, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome. What so then if we have, like, how does it determine the data from our stream before it gets to the Suspensify? Like if we have several calls or things we're architecting around, like how do we help Suspensify understand what the value is, what the error is, or does it do all that because that's the result of the observable structure that's coming through?
Yeah, it's the result of the observable structure. But so if you want to, I see what you mean. Like if you have like a switch map, and because you have like a value from the form that changes, and you go and switch map to grab data somewhere, well, it will depend on the position of where you put the Suspensify operator. And then depending on what you want, you might want to put it inside the switch map or outside, and that's the way it can help you. But we might extend it later with other operators to merge different sources and stuff like that, because the main idea was to merge this thing with Rx state, because you can connect it to the local state of your component, and then you have like a property with in the state with the results, like the whole result. So result dot error, result dot value, result dot complete. Plus it's customizable, so you don't have like it takes like a mapping function as a parameter, so you can customize like what you want from
Gotcha.
It.
So then whatever observable stream I have, however I've concocted it above, the value that comes through, this will automatically use that value as the value property.
Exactly.
Okay. The finalized, is that tracking that the observable is completed?
Exactly. Like when the stream is complete. Yeah.
The pending, is that just that it hasn't completed yet?
No,
or it hasn't errored?
The pending is when it didn't emit any value yet, and it didn't complete and it didn't have an error or whatever. Like it's just when you
Okay.
subscribed and nothing happens, and it's the property you will probably use to show like a spinner or a placeholder or whatever.
Okay. So the suspensify is emitting an initial value of this object, which
Exactly.
the pending is going to be true because it hasn't seen any value coming from the observable stream that we set up above it. Okay.
Exactly.
So that's the pending. The finalize is when the observable completes. And then the error is just anytime the observable does a regular throw error or anything like that, like the error coming through the stream.
Exactly.
So really, then I can concoct whatever observable stream I want above, and Suspensify is just allowing me to not have to write all the stuff I write in the subscribe, but allowing it to come through over time.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the point. And the thing is, if even if you're not using any, if you're using like pipe async and you're not using RxStace or whatever, you can just use Suspensify and like a share replay afterwards, and you can pluck the error, pluck the finalize, pluck whatever you want, and you end up in the template with whatever you want. Or you can also just use this Suspensify this in put this in an observable and add like an ngIf on the container with pipe async, and you got the whole state in a property, and this will be resolved from the beginning because there's the start with thing. So it's like the basic usage that one can do. So
and then you just take that object and then you bind up, your error property to the error
Exactly.
display. Yeah.
And you don't have like the common problem of like templates with complex conditions, and you're like, oh, so you can see when I can see the error plus the value, and I can see the progress bar when I have the data, and then an error, the progress bar appears, and like all
How do you
this,
do that dance? Yeah.
that.
What I really love, I'm super excited about this. What I really love about it is like when we talk about like NGRX or application state, like this is the thing that I think gets really challenging that you end up seeing all the time, is that people start thinking about my UI status, right? Or my state of my UI, like, do I have an error message or not? Ends up into like application state, because you're like, I'm doing the query down there, so does it there. But it really, doesn't feel, it's hard to think about managing it there, because now your state knows about your UI. This allows the state to live in the UI for things like error and pending, which is the right fit for that. I mean, it feels like a good fit to me. Yeah,
Totally.
This is cool.
And even like if you have like if you're like using NGRX or something similar, and you have effects that fetch data, a common pattern I see is like you have like data fetched, and then you have like a catch error, and you're dispatching like the error events, and you have like complete whatever, and you dispatch that event. What one can do is use Suspensify, and you dispatch only one action at the end, is the result.
Mm-hmm.
And then so you have one reducer that just handles like this, the error or whatever, and you do all your logic in the reducer, instead of having like 3 distinct actions that do distinct things and whatever.
Yeah.
So
it really helps to understand and have the mental model of the flow of what's happening in your UI, because that's the other challenge, right? When you talk about separate actions and effects, like then you're making it reusable, but you're breaking it apart. It's harder to understand the mental model of the story. And when we're talking about the UI, a lot of times, you're submitting a form, and there's things that happen before the form is considered completed, right? And then there's reaction that happen as errors and things. And so it's really about, at this moment, I want you to do this. I also want to know from a developer standpoint, like what all is going on in that journey, right? And then be able to react to it. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's
excited about this.
Exactly. I like the way you're explaining it. You should make like you should come to Marmicode. You should edit a video of Marmicode tasting, and you present it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like your, your show, what about when you make the libraries, right?
Yeah.
Like, who's doing that, right? Do you need a guest? Like, I can come on and
somebody's
be
got to interview
play your role to
you.
interview you. Yeah.
It's a real problem. Hey, let's do this because like it's a real problem because we have a lot of libraries we should talk about. I'm like, I'm not gonna like use my
Talk about
thing
your
to
own.
promote my libraries. All right.
It actually might be really hilarious. You have two different outfits, you know, and like you're doing the interview of yourself, and it's like,
Yeah. So totally.
you know, you see those TikToks.
Hey.
Yeah, exactly like that. Yes, Justin,
Hey.
yes, exactly. You could pull it off if you wanted. I feel. Oh God. Lars was saying he loves this. We've actually gotten a lot of this chat has been great today. So I just wanted to share the love from the stream chat, and I really think this is going to be, Justin, we got to come up with like just a bomb name for this episode title, because it's going to be one I think that people will reference and share. So I'm excited about it.
Totally.
This has been great.
We got 4 minutes left. Is
I
that
know.
enough to talk about the library, or
Yeah,
we can certainly schedule another episode. Not a problem if you want to do another episode.
I apologize. We did chat a bit much.
We can get a teaser for it, and then
Awesome.
set up another episode.
And I'd love to come back and talk about also not like all the social parts of software. We've been talking about like how humans interact, and some tips for people who feel alone in some enterprises, and we should do an episode on that. Are you alone? And yeah, about the library. So everything is on JS Cutlery, and we have like different libraries for even like another topic, which is like using testing like isolated components in Cypress and stuff like that. And but the main thing like the last thing I've been working on is this decorator I call Microwave, and that's how I decided to call it with Edward. And it's called Microwave because when you don't want to cook and you just use the microwave. So you're not into RxJS and blah blah blah, and it's like complicated, and you feel that because it's a common question. People are like, do I have to use observables in RxJS when I'm using Angular? And it's like, yeah, and like brings all the reactivity and stuff like that. So the idea is like it's a small decorator that it's using RxJS under the hood, and it brings through simplified reactivity with so every time, so the idea is simple. You add the decorator, the component is detached from the change detection, so no change detection. And every time you set a property, it triggers change detection with some coalescing to avoid like triggering it too much. And it has a function called watch for all AngularJS developers, and it's awesome. Like you can watch any property on your component, and it's an observable, and you can subscribe to it, and you don't care about subscribing to it because it will unsubscribe automatically if you don't use like additional operators.
Okay, so I just looked on GitHub and I can't find it. It's not out there, right?
No,
not yet.
No, it's actually. One can find it, but I was supposed to release it.
Love it.
You're like, search harder.
But one is really hidden in like my exploration, my laboratory repo, and now I just started the development of because I made a spike to experiment the thing before, and just started development today, and we should release it. It's just missing the documentation, so we just have to document it, and maybe in a few hours or Monday, something in between.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say like the new year. A few hours. Good lordy.
A few hours to Monday.
Monday's great. Monday's great. Man.
Okay, it's gonna be like. And that's we should experiment because like it's hacking a little bit the class because I'm using like a proxy on the class and stuff like that. So it might have side effects on some, I don't know, like some other tooling that which hacks the component or whatever.
So excited to try this.
But the idea is to make reactivity really simple and performant, because like change detection is only triggered when you move properties, and if you don't change the property, why would you trigger the change detection?
Change section. That's awesome.
So,
I'm
that's-
like making a sticky note so I check your Twitter just kind of constantly. You know,
Oh,
is it out yet? Is it out?
or
Oh,
you can
that's
subscribe to the Marmicode tasting session, and Justin will present it in my show.
no. I was gonna
There you
say
go.
I'm pretty sure Justin just volunteered to be
I
our
think so.
code salesman for any of our needs. You know, like he'll explain
go.
it, he'll package it, and get the ribbon. You know, like-
Totally. I love that.
Sold.
Think of a
Sold.
job.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Oh my
Awesome.
goodness. Well, I will
Cool.
definitely sign you up, and I'm gonna work on getting an award system going, just for
There
you
we
know
go.
the person who's been
Oh,
on
okay,
here the
cool.
longest. But we do need to do a social part of software episode, and I will be retweeting like crazy when Microwave comes out and testing it, and then maybe even teaching it in my workshops because I loathe reactivity, and I know I shouldn't, but I do because it gives me a headache. So if Microwave solves
There we go. Nuke it. Just nuke it.
Nuke it! Oh my god! I was imagining a schematic to like include Microwave, and it's like nuke, like the command is
yeah,
like
right.
nuke it. Like
I don't know, Eunice, if you're familiar with that term, it's used a lot. Like when you throw it in the microwave, we nuke it.
mhm.
Okay.
Have you ever heard that? Yeah.
he's,
so that's-
he's like, this is the thing.
it's like I don't use microwaves. Cook fresh. Yeah. So it's always kind of like been this term. I don't know if it's just in
Nuke it, yeah.
America
Cool.
that we use that or whatnot, but it's like nuke it. Just nuke it.
Okay, that's awesome. And you can nuke your component.
Sounds great. Like I'm gonna nuke my food, right? I don't know.
Cool.
But hey, there you go. Microwave's a lot more approachable. I like.
I'm gonna use this in the documentation.
You should. I would say, what would you say? It's Nuke. Is that how you spell nuke? How would you spell
Yeah.
nuke?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Like
Mhm.
Nuka-Cola and Fallout. So yeah, there you go. I don't know.
Ah.
Yeah. I think it was.
reference.
I honestly think it's a radioactive term, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Because you know
'cause
how
we-
microwaves used to be dangerous. Yeah, lols. Good technology.
That's why my mother doesn't want one still now.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, they did used to be pretty harmful. So I mean,
that's
she's not
fine.
wrong. Like
Mm.
Yeah.
there was a time when her opinion was very valid. But hopefully, I mean, we're all assuming that we're trusting the manufacturers now because they're all like, yeah, it's totally safe. So I don't know. I haven't opened her up. Have you opened her up?
I don't know. Run test. I don't know.
And it's just like best practices. Like it was a best practice not to have a microwave, and now
Right.
now you can.
Right. Exactly. Awesome. All right. Well, we're at the top of the hour. Do you want to do? Anybody have any picks we want to do? Anything else outside we can shout out? No, I have one. So if any,
Do it.
all right. I'm anxious to dive into Playwright. So we talked about that in the other episode, right? About this browser testing framework. So I haven't looked at it yet, but I'm probably going to try and jump into that today. So
Wait, I thought that was the name of Scully's other rendering engine. Is it not?
no,
Oh,
so
I'm
it's something
not.
separate from Scully that Scully's using, right? To run execute
Oh.
code in the browser.
Okay.
And then
okay.
you can interact with the browser at that point. I think it's similar to, I don't know too much, but it's similar maybe to Cypress, and that kind of concept of
Okay.
Yeah, but I think that maybe Scully is using. Maybe they're going to be using Playwright. No. Is
Yeah,
they have
no,
an option to use that. Yeah. So
it's
there's
like
two different-
one or the other, but I think it's already built into where it's like doing it. I think that's what Saunders said. Like he had it integrated.
yeah, like you can choose to use Playwright as the rendering engine or the build.
Yeah. So when Saunders told me about Playwright, I just automatically was like Scully only. So now I'm really interested, Justin, that there's purposes for it outside of using Scully. I feel stupid.
yeah, so I
so
want
you
to check
could-
that out and see what.
Yeah,
it's
you
all
have to let us
about.
know what you find out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So that's my pick. Playwright. Anybody else have any
Sure.
picks you want to share?
I have one.
Okay.
It's like I think that the typed forms RFC is now public.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're tired of reactive forms with any all over the place and you want typed forms, check out the RFC and give your feedback. Maybe we can share the link.
Yeah, I have it
And,
right here. I'm putting it
have
in
it?
private chat.
Cool. And yeah, I think that's very exciting. There's a discussion because currently in the RFC it's not covering the errors. So this might appear later. I think it could be cool if it's now. So if you feel that errors should be typed too, just send some comment there. And
Very cool.
Nice.
it's
Very cool.
it's a very
Yep.
cool RFC, and it's very interesting.
Good pick. Good pick.
Awesome.
All right. All right. Well, hey, Younes, it's always great to have you back on. Really appreciate it. I really, you know, whenever we talk to you and you know, go over the stuff and you share this content, it inspires me. So I talked a lot in this episode. Sorry, but like you get me really excited to talk about these things, especially this human side of things and things like that. So thanks for the inspiration. Thanks for sharing your time and all that you do. Really, really appreciate it.
And thank you for having me, and thank you for, like, it's clearly my favorite show. AngularAir. It was my first, I think, and it's my favorite. I don't know how you guys do it, but you know, like, it feels like very, like, there's no stress, and it's really super cool. And even though, like, when you just arrive without any prep or whatever, and you're like, I don't have that many things to share, and you make everything
Awesome.
interesting. So anyway, it's crazy. I think, like, we could stay here for hours. And
Really, yeah. When you were telling me about your content, I was like, I don't know what he's worried about. This is plenty. Like, this is great. Like, so no, I'm honored to have you on the show. It's always a great conversation. So thank you.
Super appreciate it. And we're really looking forward to more future episodes for sure.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. That's a wrap, everyone. Thank you. Take it easy.
Bye.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone. See you.